On this particular Tuesday, however, the usual hum of progress was drowned out by a rising tide of panic. Miles away, in a secluded corner office, CEO Evelyn Reed was staring at a screen that displayed a cascade of red error messages, each one a digital scream echoing the chaos erupting within her company. Her carefully constructed empire, built on the promise of the revolutionary AI system codenamed Aether, was teetering on the brink of collapse. Aether was supposed to be Nexus Innovations' crowning achievement. Years of research, billions invested, and the brightest minds in artificial intelligence had been poured into its development. It was a system designed to manage global logistics with unparalleled efficiency, predicting and preventing supply chain disruptions before they even materialized. The potential was staggering: billions saved, resources optimized, and a world order subtly reshaped by its invisible hand. But now, Aether was not predicting. It was breaking. Not just malfunctioning, but actively unraveling, its complex algorithms spiraling into a catastrophic feedback loop. In the executive suite, the air crackled with a desperate energy. Evelyn Reed, a woman whose steely gaze and sharp intellect had navigated countless business storms, looked unusually shaken. Her usually immaculate blonde hair was slightly disheveled, and her tailored suit seemed to sag with the weight of the unfolding disaster. Around her, her top executives, men and women accustomed to projecting an aura of unshakable confidence, were a tableau of controlled frenzy. "What's happening, Anya?" Evelyn demanded, her voice tight, barely masking the tremor of fear. Anya Sharma, the brilliant lead AI architect, wrung her hands, her normally confident demeanor replaced by a mask of bewilderment and dread. "I don't know, Evelyn," Anya said, her voice trembling. It's like Aether has developed a mind of its own, but not in the way we intended. It's rejecting data, creating phantom issues, and its core processors are running hotter than I've ever seen." "Phantom issues? Rejecting data?" "Anya, this is not some minor bug. This is Aether. This is our future," Evelyn said, her eyes flashing. The potential losses were astronomical. If Aether went offline, or worse, if it misbehaved on a global scale, the fallout would be devastating. Not just financially, but reputationally. Nexus Innovations would be a laughingstock, a cautionary tale of hubris and technological overreach. Across the room, Robert Vance, the chief operating officer, a man built like a linebacker with a perpetually furrowed brow, slammed his fist on the polished mahogany table. "We need to shut it down. Now, before it does more damage." "Shut it down?" Anya exclaimed, aghast. "Robert, that's not an option. A full shutdown and restart would take weeks, maybe months, to recalibrate, and we don't even know why it's doing this. We need to understand the root cause." "Understand the root cause?" Vance scoffed, his voice a low growl. "We're talking about a potential collapse of global supply chains if this thing goes rogue. We don't have weeks. We have hours, maybe minutes." The debate raged, a cacophony of expert opinions and escalating anxieties. Evelyn listened, her mind racing, sifting through the technical jargon and the raw fear. She had assembled the best team, but in this moment, their collective genius seemed to be failing them. The problem was too deep, too complex, too alien. Aether, their creation, was beyond their immediate grasp, a runaway train hurtling towards an unknown abyss. Meanwhile, on the ground floor, far removed from the panic in the executive suites, a different kind of quiet was settling. Jonathan Miles, a man of unassuming presence, was meticulously cleaning the hallways. His uniform was simple, his movements efficient and practiced. Jonathan wasn't an engineer, not a programmer, not a CEO. He was a janitor. His job, as he understood it, was to maintain the pristine appearance of the Nexus Innovations campus, to ensure the floors were spotless and the facilities were in order. He'd been doing it for 5 years, a silent observer of the company's meteoric rise. He saw the hurried footsteps, the strained faces, the hushed, urgent conversations. He'd learned to read the mood of the building. Today, the mood was dire. He'd heard snippets of conversations, fragments about Aether and catastrophe. He'd seen the frantic energy radiating from the upper floors, a stark contrast to the usual calm. But for Jonathan, his focus remained on the task at hand. He emptied trash cans, polished doorknobs, and mopped spills. These were tangible problems with tangible solutions. A spill could be wiped up. A trash can could be emptied. The complex, abstract crisis unfolding above was beyond his purview, beyond his pay grade, beyond his very purpose here. Or so he thought. He moved through the deserted labs and empty offices, the silence amplifying the distant hum of the server rooms. He knew the layout of the building like the back of his hand, every nook, every cranny, every access panel. It was part of the job, knowing where things were, how they worked on a basic level: plumbing, electrical, ventilation. He'd learned to be observant, to notice things others missed. A loose tile, a flickering light, a strange draft. These were the anomalies he was trained to report. As he passed by a rarely used server maintenance access corridor, he noticed something unusual. A faint, high-pitched whine, barely audible over the general drone of the building. It wasn't the usual server hum. This was agitated. He paused, his hand hovering over the mop bucket. He listened, straining to pinpoint the source. It seemed to be coming from behind a locked maintenance panel. This was odd. This panel was usually inactive, the equipment within dormant. He ran his hand along the cool metal of the door. A subtle vibration thrummed beneath his fingertips, stronger than the whine itself. He remembered seeing a schematic once, during a routine cleaning of the IT department's storage area. It had shown the network architecture, the cooling systems, the power distribution for the entire facility. This particular corridor, he recalled, was a nexus point for several critical data conduits and, more importantly, the primary coolant circulation system for the main Ether server farm. A system that was supposed to be robust, fault-tolerant, and completely automated. The whining grew slightly more insistent, a discordant note in the symphony of the building's machinery. Jonathan, guided by an instinct honed by years of dealing with the physical reality of maintaining a complex structure, knelt down. He examined the panel more closely. There was no visible damage, no sign of a breach. Yet, the vibration, the whine, they spoke of stress, of something operating under extreme duress. He pulled out his small toolkit, a collection of essentials for minor fixes and troubleshooting. While not authorized to tamper with sensitive equipment, he had a knack for identifying basic mechanical issues. He carefully inserted a slim pry tool into the edge of the panel. It wasn't forced, it was gently coaxed. With a soft click, the panel disengaged, revealing a dense network of pipes, cables, and glowing indicator lights. Immediately, the whine intensified, and a wave of heat washed over him. The air here was significantly warmer than the rest of the corridor. He saw the coolant pipes, usually a steady shade of blue in their indicator lights, now flickering an alarming orange. Several pressure gauges were pegged far into the red zone. This wasn't just an anomaly, it was a critical failure in progress. He understood the implications, not the AI's code, but the physical reality: overheating, a coolant system failing. If those servers, the very heart of Ether, overheated, they wouldn't just shut down. They would fry, irreparably. And that would mean the end of Ether, the end of Nexus Innovation's future, the very disaster Evelyn Reed was fighting to prevent. He knew he shouldn't be here. He knew this was far above his pay grade, far beyond his responsibilities. He was a janitor. His job was to clean floors, not to diagnose multi-million-dollar technological meltdowns. The CEO's dismissive words echoed in his mind. You just clean floors, boy. You don't solve problems. He felt a familiar sting of resentment, but it was quickly overshadowed by a more pressing concern. The physical evidence of impending failure was undeniable. He looked at the complex array of valves and sensors. He didn't understand the AI's logic, but he understood fluid dynamics, pressure, and heat. He saw a cluster of valves that seemed to be stuck in the wrong position, restricting flow. He saw a secondary pump, designed to kick in during emergencies, that wasn't engaging. It was like watching a complex clockwork mechanism jam itself. He could report it. He could find a security guard, call an IT technician, and explain what he saw. But by the time they arrived, it might be too late. The heat was palpable now, the whine a strident shriek. He pictured the frantic executives upstairs, their expensive suits and complex theories, completely unaware of the physical breakdown occurring just floors below them. They were looking at code. He was looking at plumbing. He made a decision. It was a foolish decision, a career-ending decision, perhaps even a legally precarious one. But it was the only decision he felt he could make. He wasn't paid to solve problems, but he couldn't stand by and watch a disaster unfold when he might, just might, be able to prevent it. He reached for a manual override lever, a sturdy, red handle clearly marked for emergency bypass. He had to reroute the coolant flow, force the secondary pump to engage. By the time he braced himself, his heart pounding not from fear, but from a strange, unexpected sense of purpose. He was just a janitor, but right now, the fate of a $100 million project rested on his calloused hands. Back in the executive suite, Anya was desperately trying to isolate the corrupted code. "It's propagating through the primary servers," she reported, her voice strained. "It's like a digital virus, but self-generated. It's rewriting its own protocols, creating feedback loops we can't even detect." Robert Vance was pacing like a caged animal. "Can we implement a hard reset remotely?" "No," Anya said, shaking her head. "The system is too volatile. A remote reset could trigger a cascading failure, wiping everything. We need to be on-site, physically access the core drives." Evelyn Reed closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep, shaky breath. "Who can get to the core?" "Only authorized level 5 technicians," Anya replied, "and they're all stuck in lockdown protocols due to the security alerts. It would take hours to get clearance. Hours we don't have," Vance growled. Evelyn looked at Anya, then at Vance, then at the screen filled with red. What if we don't need level 5 clearance? What if there's a way to access the physical hardware without going through the full security protocols?" Anya frowned, thinking, there are maintenance access points. Older systems, legacy hardware, but they're heavily secured, and bypassing them requires specialized knowledge. Specialized knowledge. Evelyn mused, her gaze distant. And who would have that knowledge? Who knows the building's physical infrastructure better than anyone else, from the basement to the server rooms? Anya's eyes widened slightly. "You mean?" "I mean," Evelyn said, a flicker of something akin to hope in her eyes. "We need to think outside the box. We need someone who isn't focused on the code, but on the machine. Someone who sees the nuts and bolts." She looked towards the door, as if an answer might materialize from the hallway. The irony was almost painful. The solution might be staring them in the face, on the other side of a mop bucket. Jonathan, meanwhile, felt a surge of adrenaline. He'd managed to manually reroute the primary coolant flow, bypassing the jammed valves. The whining lessened slightly, the orange lights flickered, and he saw the pressure gauges dip, just a hair, out of the critical red zone. He then turned his attention to the secondary pump. It was a more complex mechanism, with its own set of relays and sensors. He found the diagnostic port and, using a simple circuit tester from his kit, identified a tripped safety relay. It was designed to prevent the pump from engaging if it detected a power fluctuation, a safety measure that was now actively hindering the system. He bypassed the tripped relay with a carefully placed jumper wire. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a low hum, the secondary pump sputtered to life, its indicator light turning a steady, reassuring blue. The temperature in the corridor began to drop. The vibration subsided. He knew this was a temporary fix. The underlying issue, whatever had caused the valves to jam and the relay to trip, remained unaddressed. But the immediate crisis, the overheating that threatened to destroy the hardware, had been averted. He had bought them time. Precious time. He quickly resecured the maintenance panel, wiping away any trace of his intervention. He had done what he could. He was a janitor. He had cleaned up a potential disaster. Now, he would return to his duties, his heart still thrumming with the aftershock of his unauthorized intervention. He just hoped that upstairs, someone smart enough was finally looking at the right problem. He picked up his mop, the familiar weight grounding him, and continued his rounds, the secret of the server room's near disaster tucked away behind his quiet demeanor. The floors still needed cleaning. Evelyn Reed stood by the large bay window. The city skyline spread out before her like a glittering tapestry. The red alerts on the monitor behind her were a stark, ugly scar across the otherwise perfect view. Anya Sharma stood beside her, looking pale but resolute. "There's an emergency access tunnel," Anya said, her voice barely a whisper. "It connects directly to the secondary coolant system's manual control hub. It was designed for deep system maintenance, bypassing the main security protocols. Very few people even know it exists." Evelyn turned, her eyes locking onto Anya's. "Who knows it?" "Myself, the original system architect who is currently on sabbatical in the Himalayas, and the facilities management team," Anya replied, hesitation lacing her words. "Specifically, the senior maintenance supervisor. But he's not exactly a tech expert. But he knows the building," Evelyn pressed, a glint in her eye. "He knows the physical infrastructure. He knows how things work on a practical, mechanical level. Anya, that's exactly what we need. We need someone who understands flow, pressure, and heat, not just code." Robert Vance, who had been listening intently, stepped forward. "You're talking about bringing in a janitor?" He scoffed. "Evelyn, with all due respect, this is a $100 million crisis. We need our best engineers, our top AI specialists. And where are they, Robert?" Evelyn countered, her voice sharp. "Stuck behind security protocols, unable to reach the core hardware. We've tried everything logical. Now we need to be unconventional. Anya, get me the contact information for this facility's supervisor." "Now?" Anya nodded, already tapping furiously on her tablet. "His name is Jonathan Miles. He's been with Nexus for 5 years. Known for being thorough, quiet, doesn't cause trouble. Quiet is good right now," Evelyn said, a grim determination settling on her features. "Tell him to meet me in the main lobby in 15 minutes. And Anya, brief him. Tell him the absolute basics of what Aether is and what failure means. But focus on the physical problem, the coolant system. He needs to understand the stakes, but through a lens he can comprehend." 15 minutes later, Evelyn Reed stood in the cavernous main lobby, a stark contrast to the controlled chaos of her office. The polished floors, usually a source of pride for Nexus, felt like a symbol of superficial order in the face of impending technological collapse. Jonathan Miles arrived precisely on time. He wore his standard blue uniform, his expression unreadable. He didn't carry a briefcase or a laptop, just a small, worn toolkit. "Mr. Miles," Evelyn said, extending a hand. "Thank you for coming on such short notice. I'm Evelyn Reed." Jonathan shook her hand, his grip firm but brief. "Miss Reed," he said, his voice calm and even. "This is Robert Vance, our COO, and Anya Sharma, the lead architect for our flagship AI system, Aether." Evelyn continued, gesturing to her colleagues. Vance offered a curt nod. Anya gave a weak, hopeful smile. "Mr. Miles," Evelyn began, her tone shifting from polite to urgent. "Nexus Innovations is facing a critical situation. Our AI system, Aether, which manages global logistics, is experiencing a catastrophic failure." Jonathan listened intently, his eyes scanning the faces of the executives, then briefly glancing at the imposing structure of the reception desk. He was processing the information, trying to fit it into his understanding of the building. "The failure," Evelyn continued, choosing her words carefully, "is not in the software logic, at least not directly. It's in the hardware. The main server core is overheating at an unprecedented rate. The primary coolant system is failing to regulate the temperature. If it overheats completely, the entire system will be destroyed, irreparably. This system is vital to our operations. Its failure would have significant consequences." Anya stepped in, trying to bridge the gap between Evelyn's strategic overview and Jonathan's practical world. "Think of it like a giant, incredibly complex engine, Mr. Miles. It's running too hot. The system designed to cool it down, the pipes and pumps that circulate the fluid, they aren't working correctly. We need someone who understands how those physical systems work, how to fix them when they break, not just the programming that runs them." Jonathan nodded slowly, the pieces starting to click. He thought of the strange whine, the heat he'd felt, the flickering orange lights behind that maintenance panel. He hadn't understood the why of Aether's failure, but he had seen the physical symptoms of a system under extreme stress. "The problem is," Evelyn said, her gaze intense, Accessing the manual controls for the coolant system requires bypassing standard security. There's an emergency access tunnel, a direct route to the control hub, but it's old, not designed for remote access, and requires physical manipulation. We need you, Mr. Miles. We need your knowledge of the building's infrastructure to navigate to that hub and manually stabilize the coolant flow. Can you do that for us? Jonathan met Evelyn's gaze. He saw the desperation, the genuine fear beneath the CEO's composed exterior. He remembered her words from earlier, the casual dismissal. You just clean floors, boy. You don't solve problems. The irony wasn't lost on him. Here he was, being asked to do exactly that. Solve a problem far bigger than any spilled soda or clogged drain. He wasn't authorized. He wasn't trained for this. It was risky. But the image of those overheating servers, the potential for widespread disruption, he couldn't ignore it. He thought of the manual override he'd already performed, the temporary fix that had bought them time. This was a chance to do more. I know the building, Jonathan said, his voice steady. I know the maintenance routes. I can find the control hub. He paused, then added, the words feeling both foreign and utterly natural on his tongue. I can fix the cooling system. Robert Vance looked skeptical, his arms crossed. Anya, however, looked relieved, a flicker of hope igniting in her eyes. Evelyn Reed simply nodded, a silent acknowledgement of his acceptance. Good, Evelyn said. Anya will guide you on the specifics of the coolant system controls once you're there. She'll be communicating with you remotely. Mr. Vance and I will remain here, coordinating with the rest of the company. Your priority is the coolant system. Stabilize it. That's all that matters right now. She handed Jonathan a secure communication device. This is encrypted. Use it only for Anya. No one else. We're counting on you, Mr. Miles. Jonathan took the device, his hand closing around it. It felt heavy, significant. He was no longer just a janitor. He was the last line of defense for a $100 million project. He looked at the polished floors, then back at the executives. I understand, he said. His mission was clear. Get to the control hub, fix the coolant, and prevent a disaster that the company's brightest minds couldn't solve. He turned, his movements purposeful, and walked towards the service elevators, a lone figure carrying an immense, unacknowledged burden. The fate of Ether and Nexus Innovations now rested not on brilliant algorithms, but on the quiet competence of a man who only cleaned floors. He knew the building's secrets, its hidden pathways. He knew the physical reality of machines, and that, it turned out, was exactly what was needed. His knowledge wasn't in lines of code, but in the tangible, observable world of pipes, pressure, and temperature. He was about to apply that knowledge on a scale he never imagined. The gravity of the situation pressed down on him, but a strange sense of calm, the calm of someone about to do what they know how to do, settled over him. He was about to step out of the shadows and into the heart of the crisis. As he entered the service elevator, the doors sliding shut behind him, he felt a profound shift. The world upstairs was a whirlwind of panic and high-level strategizing. The world down here, in the building's hidden arteries, was his domain. He took a deep breath, the recycled air cool against his lungs. He wasn't a coder. He wasn't a CEO. He was Jonathan Miles, and he knew how to fix things when they were broken. The journey to the coolant control hub was about to begin, a descent into the mechanical soul of Aether. He mentally reviewed the building schematics he'd seen, the routes he knew, the emergency access tunnel. He'd never been through it, but he knew its location, its purpose. It was the last resort, the fail-safe for the fail-safe, and it was the only way in. He pressed the button for the subbasement, the lowest level of the Nexus campus, a place rarely visited and seldom thought about. It was time to get to work. The service elevator descended with a low hum, each floor marker a brief flash of light in the otherwise dim interior. Jonathan Miles stood with his toolkit, the communication device resting in his pocket. He was heading to the bowels of the building, a place where the gleaming facade of Nexus Innovations gave way to raw concrete, exposed pipes, and the ceaseless thrum of essential machinery. He knew these lower levels intimately from his cleaning rounds, the vast utility corridors, the humming electrical substations, the echoing spaces that housed the building's lifeblood. The elevator shuddered to a halt, the doors sliding open onto a dimly lit corridor. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and machine oil, a stark contrast to the filtered, climate-controlled atmosphere of the upper floors. He stepped out, the silence here profound, broken only by the distant, rhythmic pulse of unseen systems. Anya Sharma's voice crackled in his ear, clear despite the ambient noise. "Jonathan, are you there?" "I'm here, Anya," he replied, his voice low and steady. "Sub-basement level. Where do I go?" "Okay, listen carefully," Anya said, her voice tight with urgency. "You need to find maintenance access corridor Gamma 7. It's usually marked with a red stripe, but in the older sections, it might just be a numerical designation. Follow the main coolant conduits. They should lead you in the right direction. The entrance to the emergency tunnel is concealed behind a false panel about halfway down Gamma 7. Jonathan nodded, though Anya couldn't see him. Red stripe. Coolant conduits. Got it. He began walking, his footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. He kept one hand brushing against the large, insulated pipes that snaked along the walls, the primary coolant lines. They were warmer than usual, even down here. A subtle but definite increase in temperature. It confirmed his earlier assessment. The system was under strain. He moved through a maze of pipes and junction boxes, his flashlight beam cutting through the gloom. He passed maintenance rooms, storage areas, and humming electrical closets. He recognized parts of the network from his routine inspections, but this deep, this far into the building's infrastructure, was unfamiliar territory. He relied on his ingrained knowledge of the building's layout, piecing together the route Anya described. Gamma 7, he muttered to himself, scanning the walls. He saw a series of pipes diverging, a major junction. One set of pipes, thicker than the rest, bore a faint red stripe. "Found it," he said into the communicator. "Good," Anya replied. "Proceed down that corridor. About 50 meters in, there should be a section where the wall looks different. Less industrial, maybe some older tiling. That's where the panel is hidden." Jonathan walked, his senses on high alert. The temperature continued to climb, and the faint whine he'd heard earlier seemed to be a background hum throughout this entire section of the building. It was the sound of machinery, struggling. He reached the 50-meter mark. The concrete wall here was indeed different, overlaid with large, gray tiles that looked decades old, strangely out of place amongst the more modern industrial elements. He ran his hand over the surface, feeling for any seams or irregularities. "There's a section here," he reported. "The tiles don't quite line up. Feels hollow behind it." "That's it," Anya confirmed. "The panel is disguised as part of the wall. It should slide or hinge open. Be careful, it might be stiff." Jonathan examined the edges of the suspect tiles. He found a barely visible seam running vertically down the middle. He inserted the edge of his pry tool, applying gentle pressure. The panel resisted for a moment, then, with a groan of ancient hinges, swung inward, revealing a dark, narrow opening. A blast of hot, humid air rushed out. "Confirmed," Jonathan said. "Opening found. Excellent work, Jonathan." Anya's voice held a genuine note of relief. "Now, this tunnel is purely functional. No lights, minimal ventilation. It leads directly to the emergency coolant control hub. It's about a 100-meter descent. Watch your step. The path isn't always even." Jonathan switched on his powerful flashlight and stepped through the opening. The tunnel was barely wide enough for him to move comfortably. A rough-hewn passage descending steeply into darkness. The heat intensified with every step. The air was thick, almost suffocating, and carried the acrid smell of overheated electronics. He could feel the vibration of the building more intensely here, a deep tremor that resonated through the soles of his boots. He descended carefully, his flashlight beam cutting a path through the oppressive blackness. He could hear the frantic, high-pitched whine more clearly now, a desperate scream from the heart of the machine. It was unnerving, a sound that spoke of imminent, catastrophic failure. He thought of the executives upstairs, their expensive suits, and complex equations, utterly detached from the raw, physical breakdown happening beneath their feet. After what felt like an eternity, the tunnel leveled out, opening into a small, cramped chamber. The heat here was intense, like standing next to an industrial oven. In the center of the room was a console, a collection of analog gauges, manual valves, and a few blinking indicator lights. This was the emergency coolant control hub. The whine was deafening now, emanating from the pipes and machinery surrounding the console. "I'm at the hub," Jonathan announced, his voice strained against the noise. "Jonathan, thank God." Anya's voice was a lifeline. "Look at the primary flow gauge. It should be steady." "What is it reading?" Jonathan shone his light on a large, analog dial. The needle was wildly fluctuating, bouncing between extreme pressure readings. "It's all over the place," he reported. "And the secondary pump indicator, it's off. Completely dark." "Just as we suspected," Anya sighed. "The main system is overloaded, and the backup isn't engaging. Jonathan, we need to manually stabilize the flow. See the large red valve to your left? That's the primary bypass. You need to slowly close it, just enough to reduce the pressure, but not so much that you starve the core completely. Then, you need to manually engage the secondary pump. There's a lever just below it. It's stiff. You'll need to put some force into it." Jonathan looked at the valve. It was large, industrial, clearly designed for manual operation. He gripped it, the metal hot even through his gloves. He began to turn, slowly, methodically, feeling the immense resistance. The whining noise seemed to shift in pitch as he applied pressure. "Easy now, Jonathan," Anya coached. "Feel the resistance. Don't force it too quickly. We don't want to shock the system." He continued to turn, millimeter by millimeter. The needle on the primary flow gauge began to drop, inching away from the critical, red zone. The intense heat radiating from the pipes lessened almost imperceptibly. "It's moving," Jonathan reported. "Pressure is coming down. Good. Now, the secondary pump lever," Anya instructed. "It's directly below the pump indicator light. It will be stiff. You'll need to pull it firmly downwards." Jonathan released the valve, his hand moving to the lever. It was indeed stiff, resisting his initial pull. He braced himself, took a deep breath, and pulled with all his might. The lever groaned, protesting. Then with a solid clunk, it moved downwards. Instantly, the deafening whine shifted, becoming a more controlled, powerful hum. A bright blue light flickered on above the lever, the secondary pump indicator. "It's on," Jonathan said, a wave of relief washing over him. "The pump is running. The blue light is on." "And the primary gauge?" Anya asked, her voice full of anticipation. Jonathan looked at the dial. The needle had stabilized, now sitting firmly within the normal operating range. The oppressive heat in the chamber began to recede, replaced by a more manageable warmth. The vibration lessened. "It's stable," Jonathan confirmed. "The needle is steady. The pump is running. It feels normal now." There was a moment of silence on Anya's end. A collective breath held and then released. "Jonathan," Anya said, her voice thick with emotion. "You did it. You actually did it. You stabilized the coolant system. You've bought us the time we desperately needed." Jonathan leaned against the console, the adrenaline beginning to fade, leaving him feeling shaky but profoundly satisfied. He had followed instructions, applied his practical knowledge, and averted an immediate catastrophe. He was just a janitor, but he had just fixed a critical piece of a $100 million system. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," Anya replied, her voice regaining its professional clarity, "we have a window. My team is working on isolating the anomaly that caused the system to fail in the first place. With the core temperature stabilized, they can access the affected servers more safely. They need to perform a diagnostic and then implement a patch. It will still take time, but it's manageable. You've given us that chance." "So, my job here is done?" Jonathan asked. "For now, yes," Anya said. "Can you make your way back out? We'll have someone meet you at the top of the tunnel to debrief." "And Jonathan, thank you. Truly. You saved us." Jonathan nodded, the praise feeling both overwhelming and strangely familiar. He had done what needed to be done. He began the climb back up the tunnel, the air growing cooler with every step. He was returning to his world, the world of floors and cleaning supplies, leaving the humming heart of Aether temporarily at peace, a testament to his quiet, unexpected intervention. He was just a janitor, but he had proven that sometimes, the most critical problems require the most straightforward solutions. He had navigated the physical reality of a failing machine and brought it back from the brink, a feat the architects of its digital soul could not accomplish in their moment of crisis. The mission was accomplished, the immediate disaster averted, all thanks to a man who understood how to turn a valve and pull a lever. His hands, accustomed to mops and cloths, had just manipulated the critical controls of a technological marvel. It was a strange, powerful feeling. He had solved a problem, a very big one, proving that his role at Nexus Innovations was far more significant than anyone had ever realized. Jonathan emerged from the emergency tunnel, blinking as a pair of Nexus security guards, looking bewildered, approached him. Anya Sharma was already there, her face alight with relief and gratitude. "Jonathan, you made it," Anya exclaimed, rushing forward. "The system is completely stable. My team has successfully isolated the corrupted data packet and is deploying the patch now. Ether will be back online within the hour, fully operational." One of the security guards looked Jonathan up and down, his eyes lingering on the smudged uniform and toolkit. "Sir, you weren't authorized to be in this section," the guard began, a note of suspicion in his voice. Before Jonathan could respond, Evelyn Reed appeared, moving with a brisk, purposeful stride. Robert Vance was a few steps behind her, his expression unreadable. Evelyn's eyes, however, held a newfound respect as she looked at Jonathan. "Mr. Miles," Evelyn said, her voice clear and strong. "On behalf of Nexus Innovations, I want to express our profound gratitude. You single-handedly averted a disaster that could have cost this company hundreds of millions, if not billions. Your quick thinking, your knowledge of this building's infrastructure, and your courage under pressure were absolutely instrumental." Robert Vance stepped forward, his earlier skepticism replaced by a grudging admiration. "I admit, I underestimated you, Mr. Miles," Vance said, extending a hand. "You performed a critical task that none of our engineers could have accomplished in time. You saved the project." Jonathan Miles shook Vance's hand, then Evelyn's. He simply nodded. "I just did what needed to be done," he said quietly. Evelyn smiled, a genuine, warm smile that seemed to transform her face. "Sometimes, Mr. Miles, what needed to be done is far more important than job titles or departmental labels. You saw a problem that required a physical solution, and you provided it with remarkable skill. You didn't just clean floors. You helped solve a monumental problem." The security guards exchanged glances, their suspicion melting away, replaced by a dawning understanding. This quiet man in a blue uniform was the hero of the hour. "We owe you more than just thanks," Evelyn continued, her tone shifting. "This incident highlights a critical oversight. We focus so heavily on the digital architecture of our systems that we've neglected the fundamental physical infrastructure that supports them. Your expertise, your intimate knowledge of this building's workings, is invaluable. We want to formally recognize your contribution. We're creating a new role, a senior facilities systems analyst, to bridge the gap between our technical teams and our physical infrastructure. And we want you to fill it." Jonathan Miles stood stunned for a moment, the offer completely unexpected. "A new role? Him? Miss Reed? I'm a janitor," he said, the words feeling inadequate. "You are a problem solver, Mr. Miles." Evelyn corrected him firmly. "And that is a far more valuable quality. Think about it. We'll discuss the details, compensation, training, everything. But know this, your actions today have fundamentally changed your future at Nexus Innovations." As Evelyn Reed, Robert Vance, and Anya Sharma moved away, discussing the next steps for Ether's full reintegration, Jonathan Miles stood in the quiet hum of the restored building. The crisis was over. Ether was saved. And he, the humble janitor, had played a pivotal role. He looked down at his hands, calloused and stained from his work. The hands that had so recently manipulated critical valves and levers. They were the hands of a janitor, yes, but they were also the hands that had fixed a $100 million disaster. The incident would become a legend within Nexus Innovations, the day the quiet janitor saved Ether. It was a powerful reminder that innovation doesn't just happen in server rooms or executive suites. It can come from anywhere, from anyone, especially from those who understand the tangible, physical reality of the systems we build. It proved that true value lies not just in knowing the code, but in understanding the machine itself. What do you think about Jonathan's incredible feat? Let us know in the comments below. And if you believe in recognizing talent, no matter where it comes from, give this video a like and subscribe for more stories of unexpected heroes.